Chernobyl Monsters, Unraveling the Myths and Mysteries. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most chilling and fascinating topics out there, the legendary Chernobyl monsters. Now, if you've ever heard of Chernobyl, you know it was the site of one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. But what you might not know is that it's also become a breeding ground for some pretty wild folklore. Just what kind of creatures could be lurking in the shadows of this ghost town? Let's explore. First, let's take a quick trip back in time. On April 26, 1986, a reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine went into meltdown, leading to a massive release of radiation. Thousands of residents were evacuated, leaving behind their homes, pets, and entire lives. This tragic event created an exclusion zone around the area, now largely deserted but eerily preserved. Fast forward to today, and this haunting landscape has transformed into a unique blend of nature, reclaiming its territory and the shadows of a troubling past. The disaster isn't just a historical event, it's a setting for incredible stories, myths, and yes, monsters. Traumatic events often give way to urban legends, and Chernobyl is no exception. Ghost stories and monster tales started circulating almost immediately after the disaster. Locals and urban explorers began to report sightings of strange, mutated creatures. Think giant animals with odd growths, or even glowing entities that seem to vanish when approached. One popular tale even describes a bloodsucker, a creature said to lurk in the shadows, preying on those who wander too far into the exclusion zone. Who wouldn't be intrigued by tales like that? These stories became a way for people to cope with the fear and uncertainty surrounding the disaster. The idea of monsters helps to make sense of the indescribable horror of radiation and loss. Whether real or imagined, these legends captured the imaginations of many and turned Chernobyl into a place of both fear and fascination. Now, let's put on our scientist hats for a moment. While it's easy to get swept away by these fantastical tales, the reality is a bit more grounded. In the years following the disaster, scientists conducted extensive studies on the wildlife in the exclusion zone. Surprisingly, they found that many animals are thriving despite the radiation. Wild boars, wolves, and even Przewalski's horses have returned to the area, seemingly adapting to their unique environment. However, there have been documented cases of mutations, but not in the way you might expect. While some plants and animals show signs of radiation's effects, the changes are often subtle and not the horrifying mutations from horror films. Scientists emphasize that most of the wildlife is healthy and shows little sign of extreme deformities. So while the notion of Chernobyl monsters is thrilling, it's largely a product of fear and imagination rather than an accurate portrayal of what's really happening there. Let's talk about pop culture for a second. Chernobyl has inspired everything from movies to video games, turning it into a stomping ground for monsters and mayhem. Who remembers the miniseries Chernobyl? While it focused primarily on the historical aspects, plenty of horror flicks and video games, like the Stalker series, have taken a more mythical approach. These adaptations often blend the idea of monstrous beings with the eerie, deserted landscape, creating nightmares that keep audiences on the edge of their seats. It's a potent mix of history and horror, all wrapped up in one, fueling the ongoing fascination with Chernobyl and its supposed beasts. The stories we tell in our films and games can skew our perceptions of reality, making those legends feel even more real. Speaking of reality, let's bring it back to the folks who have been there. Urban explorers and tourists regularly venture into Chernobyl. Many share stories of their experiences, from eerie silence to encountering wildlife up close. Travelers often describe a feeling of surreal beauty juxtaposed with the weight of tragedy. But isn't it interesting how some adventurers claim they felt watched or even heard whispers in the wind? It seems like the environment itself can evoke strong emotions, making it easy to understand how stories of monsters can sprout from such occasions. Whether it's the thrill of the unknown or a simple case of nerves, the human mind loves to fill in the gaps with dark imaginings. So there you have it. The tales of Chernobyl monsters are a fascinating mix of history, imagination, and pop culture that continues to evolve. They remind us of the power of storytelling in the face of tragedy and the boundless potential of human creativity. What do you think? Are these monsters merely a reflection of our fears, or is there something out there? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing content. Until next time, stay curious.